Jessica Lemon of AARP Texas, and I am pleased that AARP is a proud sponsor of the Striking a Balance Caregiver Conference. As a sponsor, we hope that you're gaining new insights into family caregiving and that you have the opportunity to connect with other caregivers and experts on aging. Family caregiving is a priority for AARP. It is essential to our work today, but that's not all. AARP is doing amazing things to make life better for the age 50+ populations and the generations to follow. We help improve their financial well-being and their health. We want people to contribute to society and local communities and to fully enjoy life. Some of you may already know that AARP has a strong presence throughout Texas in many communities in this great state, including Austin, the capital city where I live and work. Again, this year, AARP Texas is bringing opportunities to our members and others through virtual events, just like this one that we're participating in today. We hope you have the opportunity to enjoy these free offerings. Not only are there programs to help unpaid family caregivers, but there are presentations to help people avoid being victims of fraud. We host fitness seminars and we work with city leaders towards making this an even more age-friendly community. And know this, volunteers are critical for our mission. There are many opportunities for those who can give a little time to volunteer. You can learn more about these local happenings at aarp.org/TX or find us at the AARP Texas Facebook page. But again, of course, family caregiving is a priority. There are 48 million family caregivers in the US, 3.4 million in Texas alone. They provide help to loved ones, usually a parent, spouse, or sibling. Caregiving can be anything from driving a loved one to a doctor's appointment, making sure bills are paid, cleaning the house, or helping bathe and dress, and many caregivers do fairly complex medical tasks. Caregivers come from every generation, from Gen Z to the silent generation, and every racial and ethnic group. And you know, most of us will either be a caregiver or need care at some point during our lives. AARP recently released new research on how much family caregivers spend out of their own pockets to care for a loved one. We found that almost every caregiver spends money on caregiving, and about 8 in 10 routinely spend their own money on caregiving. The average amount that caregivers spend each year is $7,240. That's more than a fourth of their household income on average. Housing expenses like rent or mortgage payments, assisted living, and home modifications make up more than half of caregiver spending, followed by medical expenses. Caregivers also experience indirect financial setbacks, often postponing their own personal savings for retirement. But I am here to tell you there's action that can help. Congress is considering a bipartisan bill called the Credit for Caring Act, which would create a tax credit of up to $5,000 for working family caregivers. This could help offset some of those major expenses that we know caregivers are facing. AARP, along with 80 other organizations, endorse the Credit for Caring Act. Family caregivers are the backbone of our long-term care system, but they are breaking under the pressure. Creating a tax credit for family caregivers is one way that Congress can help. If you would like to learn more about the Credit for Caring Act, visit aarp.org/caregiving. There, you will also find many resources available for family caregivers just like you. So again, that's aarp.org/caregiving. Thank you for listening. Again, I'm Jessica Lemon with AARP Texas, and thank you for all that you do as family caregivers or to support caregivers.
Thank you so much, Jessica. And thank you for joining us this morning. Good morning. I'm Rob Fabian with Age of Central Texas, and along with our wonderful partners at the Area Agency on Aging of the Capital Area, we are pleased to welcome you once again to our 20th anniversary Striking a Balance Caregiver Conference. This is the 20th year that we have produced this conference, which is the longest running and largest caregiver conference here in Central Texas. And we have a real treat for you this morning. So we are glad that you are here to be a part of this wonderful experience. Before we get started, want to go over just some really simple housekeeping items. Number one, we are recording this session today. So if for any reason you have a technical issue on your side or you need to leave before we're done, don't worry. We're recording the session and we're going to post it to YouTube later on this week. And at the end of this week, we're going to send everybody a list of all the links to all of the sessions that were recorded. And you'll be able to watch those or share them with friends later on. Number two, we sent you a copy of the conference program, and we hope you take a moment to take a look at that. Not only does it have wonderful information about all of our speakers, but there's also some fantastic caregiver resources that we have put together just for you. So be sure and take a look at that program. Also, right down here at the bottom of your screen, you have a chat feature. Looks like one of those thought bubbles that you see in the comic strips. We want you to click on that feature, and then during today's session, we want you to ask questions, we want you to comment, we want to hear from you. Because after all, these sessions are for you. This is why we've been doing this for 20 years. We want to bring you the information, the resources, and the help that you need on your journey as a caregiver. So please ask your questions today. At the end of our presentation, we're going to have a facilitated Q&A, and we're going to answer your questions. Now, we are going to be very cognizant of your time. We said we would stop this morning at 11:30, and that's exactly what we're going to do. So if for any reason we run out of time and don't get to all the questions, don't worry. We're still going to answer your question. We will send you a direct email, and we will answer your question directly. Then finally, at the end of this week, we're going to send you a survey electronically, and it will only take about 2 minutes to complete. But it's very important, and we hope that you'll take the time to answer the survey. You see, the information that we get from caregivers who attend our sessions helps us plan for next year. So we need to know, what are some of the topics that you want to see for next year? What are some of the issues that you're dealing with as a caregiver? Let us know so that we can find those experts to be able to bring you that information for our 21st anniversary. All right, it is my pleasure to introduce Patty Bordie. She is the Executive Director for the Area Agency on Aging of the Capital Area. She has many years of experience in caregiving, and we believe that she is probably the last person standing from our 20 years of presenting the Caregiver Conference. Patty's going to introduce our panelists, and she is going to facilitate today's session. So Patty, it is all yours.
All righty. I'm so excited to be here on the 20th anniversary. And I'm so excited to be moderating this panel of caregivers. Throughout the 20 years, both AGE and the Area Agency on Aging have been focused on the most valuable resource. When we talk about caregivers, the most valuable resource are the caregivers themselves. So it is at the core of everything we do to find ways to support, prop up, bolster, really recognize the strength that you bring and help you to continue your journey as caregivers. We are never trying to replace the family caregiver, in any way. We recognize that you are the key to keeping your loved one safe and sound and in the community of their choice. So I just want to share real quickly, I hope you can see these beautiful zinnias, nature's finest, and other wildflowers. There's 20 of them. One of my staff, Rhonda Thompson, who's with us, brought these in to recognize the 20 years, to also recognize that if we were face-to-face, y'all would be at tables together, y'all would be sharing your tips and techniques. And this is really an attempt to bring that kind of sharing into the virtual atmosphere. So I hope we can at least halfway capture that, because my joy when we do the face-to-face event is really hearing the sound level just go way up during the breaks and in between all of the sessions while the caregivers are sharing. So I want to thank you very much to the caregivers who volunteered to do this for us. One of the things, the last thing I want to say is that we do recognize that most of you have stepped up to be caregivers because you are the strong ones. You have a lot of strength. You've said, yes, I'll do this. You're also the givers, and you're the ones who really, and the 4 that we have here today have decided, yes, not only, do I give to my loved one, but I want to give to other caregivers because I have some experience and some, ideas that might help newer caregivers. So, without any further ado, I'm going to allow the caregivers to introduce themselves. I'm going to ask that you just give us your name, give us how many years you have been providing care. You may have been doing that for 1 or more people. Let us know what the relationship is to those individuals. And then you can share, but you do not have to share anything about condition or diagnosis. We want to respect everybody's confidentiality, and we only want you to share what you feel comfortable with and what your care receiver would feel comfortable with. We also want you to feel confident that if there's a question that doesn't really resonate with you, or you don't, feel comfortable answering it, you don't have to answer every question. So I will call your name before you answer the question, so and you can just unmute and then answer the question. We have about 2 minutes to answer each question for each of you. So we are going to be going fast and furious. And I appreciate you being here. So you all, you have the option to keep your cameras off when you're not speaking, but it is nice to see people's faces whenever we can. So I'm going to go ahead and start the introductions with Betsy Ford.
Okay, can we hear me?
Yes, thank you, Betsy.
My name is Betsy Ford, and I was actually born into the caregiving role. At the age of 4, my mother contracted polio and was crippled for the rest of her life. As a result, I was able to naturally grow more into caregiving role as my mother grew more into needing the caregiving over the years. My sister and I also served as long-distance caregivers for my aunt who lived in New Orleans. We managed her estate and care for several years, traveling to be with her as needed and spending a lot of time talking to her on the phone. I was the only one at the side of both my mother and my aunt when they passed away. I helped a cousin in her 90s for several weeks, a few years back when her caregiver had surgery. Then I was there by my husband's side as he battled CLL cancer for several years back. Luckily, he's now in remission. Thank you, MD Anderson. The last few years, I have been the medical POA for my mother-in-law as she has progressed from independent living to now being in memory care and most recently hospice care after being diagnosed with COVID this past week. We're living through that experience right now. As a result, you will notice I will be reading my responses just to try to keep me from crying and getting distracted from what I want to share. Please excuse me for taking this approach. I'm a retired CPA, and I like to think of myself as a lifelong learner and volunteer. And I'm proud to say that I've learned many new things with each caregiver experience I've been a part of and found them to be worthwhile experiences, regardless of the level of difficulty I've had to experience with each. The end.
Thank you so much, Betsy. We appreciate it. Yvette, I'm going to call on you next to introduce yourself and your situation.
Hello, my name is Yvette Mcveigh. I am a caregiver for my mom, who is 71 that has dementia. I have been caregiving for her for 2 years. That's all.
Thank you. Miss Loretta Brown.
Good morning. I'm Loretta Brown, and I've been very focused on caregiving since 2007 when my mother had a stroke. And since that time, I'm a baby boomer. My mother was very fiercely independent and worked until she's 80 years old. She's 86 now, 86 years old now. So she continued to work a few years after that stroke, which amazes me. But then came the time where the falls and all of the events that happen when you lose mobility caused me to really focus on the caregiver role. And I'm delighted to be here with these ladies today. Thank you.
Thank you. And then last but not least, Sharmila Advani.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for welcoming me into this space today. It's an honor to be here with all of you. My name is Sharmila Advani. I'm an only child, single mom full-time working single mom and a sole giver for my own mother, who recently had cardiac issues and is recovering from a stroke. I used to run operations for a spirituality center here in Austin and the programming roadmap for mindfulness and activities such as that. I actually feel like my caregiving role started about 15 years ago when we lost my dad. And it just started with simple things like phone calls and taking care of groceries and things like that. And I have to say, we've been passing that candle or that lamp back and forth between me and my mom, because I've had some challenging times in the last few years. So it hasn't been one-way caregiving, but I think I've been a full-time caregiver for the last couple of years since she's been living with me. My mom is 80, and thank you for having me here.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to jump right in, and I will do my best to keep you all on time. And I will also ask Rhonda Thompson, who's my backup, to keep me on time. So the first question, and Sharmila, I'm going to start with you because you sort of already answered the question. What was caregiving like for you when you first started? What were the tasks, the impacts, the feelings? You know, we have heard that caregiving kind of creeps into people's lives, sort of, they don't expect it. And how was that for you? And you shared a little bit about that.
Absolutely. Happy to share more. Initially, when my father passed away, I was overwhelmed and I was thrown into high gear. So there was a lot of empathy and a lot of compassion toward my mom, who now felt helpless. And then over the years, now that she's come to live with me, we started all over again. So it didn't quite change, but we started all over again. But the helplessness is something that I wanted to take care of her. And I was joyful to have her around me. And I was joyful to be able to provide some comfort and less suffering and all of those things. So that's how it started. And I know you have another question coming up later, so I'll hold on. But yes, it started from a place of really wanting to help make this life wonderful and continue to encourage her through her journey with the illnesses.
Thank you. Okay, Betsy, how did your caregiver journey start? What was it like?
I was very blessed. I didn't have to go through being overwhelmed or panicked or anxious or worried that I wouldn't know what to do or how to do it when the time arose. As I mentioned, I was kind of born into the role and we just went with the flow. A positive attitude on all sides played a big part in not being overwhelmed at that time or worrying that the roles I progressed into were things I couldn't do. Mom practiced positivity with an upbeat attitude and never seemed to feel sorry for herself. So my job was different than other children sometimes, but it was an easy job from my perspective. On the negative side, in those days, the 50s and 60s, there were no handicapped accesses at the end of curbs, no handicapped restrooms, no handicapped anything else. And if there was training for family caregivers, I wasn't aware of it.
Thank you. Okay, Yvette, you're up next. Same question. What was caregiving like for you when it first started?
Well, I will say I've only been in Austin 4 years. And so my mom, initially she fell and broke her ankle when I was here, maybe going on a year and a half. So after she took that fall, she was in rehab and then came out of rehab where she checked herself out of rehab and went home with no one to care for her. So it was very stressful, me being 4 hours away from her and trying to care from her from a distance. So initially I had some help with my ex-husband and my daughter. But my mom is a retired RN and was very hard to care for. She was like, I know what I'm doing. And she did not know what she was doing. So it was very stressful trying to, care for a caregiver, her being a nurse. So once we got her on the right track, which we're still trying to get on the right track, I ended up having to move her down here, but it was not easy. Like y'all was like, oh, no, it was not. She was did not want to come. I did root her from her home that she had been in since I was 11. So it was very stressful. It's leveling out, but it started out very stressful.
Thank you. Thank you. And Loretta, how did your journey start?
Well, my journey started with a lot of pushback from a fiercely independent woman from a military Marine Corps family. Dad was always away growing up as a baby boomer at Vietnam and all the wars and everything else. So mom always took care of everything, including herself, of course. So she actually did transition to move from Midland, Texas, out in the middle of nowhere. None of us were left out there really. And I had moved to Austin in 1997 when my father passed away. So initially, it just started with, okay, she needs to go to the doctor appointments. Her kidneys levels were failing and her mobility started to decline. She was not able to, she literally has a smaller home and she does have a lot of trust issues. So it started out pretty rocky of just being there for logistics. But as I mentioned, when I introduced myself, that became severely changed when she fell and split her head open while she tried to maintain cleaning the yard up. And I got that phone call one day where she said, "Loretta, I'm bleeding to death." And I happened to be home, thank goodness, even though I do work downtown usually. Hung up the phone and found her in the hospital ambulance, and the journey went from there. So it was a wake-up call that she could not do this by herself. And it was not about just taking her to doctor appointments. It was literally looking for the signs and being there as a primary caregiver.
Thank you. Thank you all very much. I mean, that question just in and of itself gives us an example of over the years, and I have been providing services to caregivers for at least 20 years. Everybody's story is very unique, but what we're going to find in the answers to some of these future questions is that there are some similarities and there are ways that we can learn from each other as well. But that's what makes it, a little bit more challenging to support caregivers is everybody's story is unique. Everybody's family is unique. Family history is different. So I hope we can, bring that out a little bit more with these following questions. Question number 2. Do you have a support team? Family, friends, outside professionals? If so, how did you go about creating that? How did you find that team of people and bring them together to assist? If not, what do you do to take care of yourself if when you find you don't have that support team available? So that's sort of a 2-part question. I'm going to start with Loretta on this one.
Thanks. I think it starts with, for me, friends and medical contacts is how it started. And also I had to reach out because I'm a single homeowner, full-time work. Unlike my mother who paid bills to the penny, I seemed to always be stretching things. So when it came to caregiving and all that, I really needed help with the social services contacts, like the Agency on Aging of the capital area has been a blessing. The respite care program, I couldn't have done it with the immediate needs and surgeries and things that have happened recently without that help. But the lifesaver for me and my mother is making sure that I am plugged in with the friends who have gone through this experience. And now I'm learning about all of you sharing that. So I know I need to reach out to other caregivers more. So unfortunately, family is distant. I'm the only physical member of my family that lives in the Austin area. And unfortunately, the family dynamic, even though we have a very healthy 23-year-old granddaughter in town, she just doesn't maintain the relationship, and it's very heartbreaking. So you have to, forgive them and realize that they've got their own life to live and not expect that from other family members. But in that, I do have brothers who are caring. One of them is actually a nurse, but he's not the hands-on kind of nurse. He can't take care of his mother. He lives in Austin and at a distance. He'll pop in for, I don't know if you have those family members that pop in for like 5 minutes. They drive all the way in town and they're, hey, how's it going? Whatever, have a cup of coffee, and they're out of there. It's not that they don't care. It's a different level of caring, but they're there on the phone, calling, checking up. Hey, how's mom doing? Hand me the phone. And that means so much. So having a cousin from the distant that sent supplies when we had the power outage at the time, I didn't really have all the finance to go out and buy all the incontinence supplies. So even some financial or help, people reaching out, accepting help from family and friends when they provide it and finding the services is really the main support that I've had.
Thank you. Thank you. Yvette, same question. Do you have a support team? How did you create that? And if not, how do you help take care of yourself?
So initially, when she was still living at home, I had more help than I did when I brought her to Austin, because we have family in Lufkin that could assist me in those matters. But since I've been here, I did work for Dad, so I did have some knowledge on getting the community attended services, the Star Plus waiver programs, and I was aware of that, and I was like, let's get this done. Let me get her on these services so she can have some help here. What happened was, during COVID, during COVID, I happened to be working from home. So it allowed me to be here more because, of course, there were no caregivers because of COVID. They weren't coming in the home. So here I have limited support. I do have family from my dad's side that will come up and help me if I need to go out of town or do something like that. But usually I'm with that family. But they will be like, okay, well, you go and take your time and we'll stay here and help. I do utilize respite services. Guys, take advantage of all the resources available to you. Take time for yourself, because if you're not healthy, then you can't take care of them. If you're tired and exhausted, you're going to be just frustrated. So utilize the resources you have. So I do have some help, but I do utilize the resources available to me, which helps a lot.
Thank you. Sharmila, your answer to the care team development question.
So I don't have any family here. I'm not even from this country. So I definitely felt very alone, but I have been blessed with wonderful friends who I have in Austin. I will share one thing. My mom only came to live with me 3 or 4 years ago when her health really took a turn for the worse. But when she used to come on visits to Austin, I introduced her to this wonderful program called Seva, which is an intergenerational program that runs over here. So I kind of nudged her to go and interact with other folks who were visiting at the time, or immigrants, and because she was uprooted and she was displaced, and I needed her to feel acknowledged and people to recognize that. So that was really important, and I wasn't doing this with a plan in mind. I was just doing it because it felt right to give her that support in the time. Also, I noticed that my social circle started changing. I wasn't going out on dates like any other single moms. I was making friends with people who were either caregivers too, or where there were 3 generations living in the same home. So there was that mutual respect. And I love what we've been doing with that at a subconscious level all this time. So yes, when she was hospitalized for the 3 months, it was just before COVID, I did feel extremely alone, but I did have dear friends who I could call on and vent and whine, and they would come to the hospital and brush her hair or press her feet. And this was, for me, this was just, people used to tell me, you need to ask for help. You need to ask for help. So that was one of the things I learned along the way. It's okay to ask for help. You're not Superwoman and you will get burned out. So I did learn to ask for help. And funnily enough, they used to tell me, we aren't doing this for you, Sharmila. She's obviously done a lot of serving and her servant leadership in all these years. This is called paying it forward. We're just doing it for this wonderful woman. We're not doing it for you, And that just made me feel better. It took that weight off my shoulders, because I know in some way, shape, or form, I will be able to pay it forward.
Great. Thank you. And Betsy.
Okay. As I mentioned prior, these days I'm overseeing the care of my 84-year-old mother-in-law. This has been the hardest caregiver endeavor ever. First, my mother-in-law's physical ability started to decline. She had 2 hip surgeries in 1 year due to falls. Then her mental abilities progressed downward and in the end spiraled down quickly. She's experienced extreme frustration with this. Let me find, I lose my place again on there. She's often been her own worst enemy, wanting to be independent and self-reliant even when she knew she could not be. It was heartbreaking and emotionally draining when these incidents occurred. As for my team these days, I have an awesome support team with my husband of 39 years leading and outshining the rest of the back. He handles my care. He does numerous things in the background just to keep me alive and functioning, which is not always an easy job these days. He has been patient with my time that his mother gets now that he used to get, knowing this will not last forever and what I am doing is important for his mother's well-being. My mother-in-law also has a friend who volunteered to be our financial POA. So for the most part, I only handle medical and physical end of my mother-in-law's needs. Dividing these responsibilities up really helps. For doctors, nurses, memory care helpers, etc., have been the best I could ask for, minus a few duds along the way. But I would also add here, pre-planning and research before acting and selecting these professionals has definitely helped. And last but not least, some of my biggest and most valuable support has come from Patty Bordie and her staff at Area Agency on Aging, Age of Central Texas, AARP, and Cindy Cummings with LT Senior Services for their numerous conferences, Zooms, live presentations, and training on caregiving that have guided and trained me along the way. They are awesome and present top-notch educational programs that I hope you will all have access to if you have not already done so. More than likely, support's not going to fall in your lap. You will have to be on the lookout for it and ready and open to accept it when it comes your way. And don't be afraid or embarrassed to accept help when offered. You will need it. No one fights alone. The orange bracelet that I wear for my husband's cancer says. That statement applies to those who we care for in other areas as well. Nobody fights alone. If you've not already done so, start gathering your team. They'll be invaluable to you along your journey as it comes. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all very much. I just have to stop here for a second because we did not script any of this, and I could not have written a script that was more perfect. Y'all are touching on all the high points in a caregiving journey, and I appreciate your knowledge so much. Question number 3, how did things change over time? The tasks, the impacts, the feelings, the relationships, and the interactions, because we know, as we said, it kind of creeps in and then all of a sudden it turns. So just a little bit of insight into how things changed over time. And I'm going to start with Sharmila on this one.
I'll be honest, this is the toughest one because it's going to take a lot of vulnerability, but I'm absolutely here to share because I think that's the only way forward. Compassion fatigue. And I've been fortunate enough in my role working for the Spirituality Center funded by Ascension Seton to come across wonderful human beings who have taught me mindfulness, who have taught me about compassion fatigue. And I've met people who are caregivers, given hugs to people walking through our doors in my role there, which actually filled my cup every single day when I wasn't a caregiver, so that I was already resilient when I started on this journey. So it really did give me a lot to start with and a lot more to give. But I will admit, I mentioned the joy and the enthusiasm in the beginning. And what's happened is that sense of duty changed to a chore. The nurturing translated to neglectful. Being fully present. Having my mom's presence in my life was supposed to be joyful, changed to a little bit of resentful, having less time for me and my child. So it was definitely challenging, but I'm aware of it. And to live with that on a day-to-day basis is very difficult. We experience the guilt and the shame and the outbursts sometimes. So that's how it's changed for me. And I will say that my saving grace has just been having that attitude of gratitude, and as well as being able to turn to mindfulness practices where you can just sit with those emotions and not sit with those emotions where it's not exaggerated, and just sit with those emotions, give yourself space and that self-compassion to be aware of it, and just take a breath and learn to let go and just come back into the moment and be that caring, kind, joyful person for this human being, just to be able to provide them this beautiful quality of life that you can experience and share together in the next how many ever years.
Thank you so much. Betsy, why don't you tackle this one next?
Okay, I'd like to approach this question in a little different form. My latest situation is more complicated and demanding than my first, but here's how I view it. In my early years, I carried around this little box And in this box, there were small boxes inside that contained all the support I needed. And the outer box was small and light and easy to carry. These days, I feel the box I carry is much larger, heavier, and bulkier. But I still have many little boxes inside to support my needs for me and my mother-in-law. Manage my current box successfully and not drop it, I've opened the big box and accessed the smaller box of support that's inside. By exposing these boxes, I've given myself and others the opportunity to see the little boxes and take one if they feel they can carry it for me or they have expertise to carry it for me. Incidentally, the word burden, a word many people try to pretend does not exist in the caregiver vocabulary, simply means heavy load. I've survived and even sometimes thrived in my caregiving roles by being open to share my little boxes. So my big box is no longer a burden, but a blessing of shared support and caring. How things changed over time for me. My load's lighter and my relationships are stronger. I feel stronger because of the support I've received. I also think the lives of all involved have been enriched due to the satisfaction gained from working together in our caregiver roles for a common goal. The jobs so many have done have not been easy most of the time, but they have been worth it. I can see and feel the results. These days, I have a better idea of where to go for resources and support, and I've developed more courage and confidence to seek out what I need and take advantage of the skills I've learned and the support that's been offered. Also, electronic communications, transportation, medication, medical aids have also advanced since the 1960s, and they play a tremendous role in lightening the load these days for those who must carry it and those who we are carrying it for. Thank you.
Thank you, Betsy. Appreciate it. Miss Loretta, how did things change over time?
You know, I started to jot all this down, and now I think it's just time to come from the heart on this one, because it was just kind of nuts and bolts being the daughter, the reliable daughter. At first, between 2007 and 2018, my mom continued to live at home. But 2018 went for just a routine drive-by after late work at the office, and my brother was waiting out front. We wanted one of those drive-by come-in towns. He had called me and said, "I'm trying to get a hold of Mom and I can't get a hold of her." And we sat there and I went and checked the mailbox and found out she hadn't been checking her mail. No matter what, even with mobility, she would get on that walker and roll across to the little mailbox and get her mail out every day, reliably. There were 2 days and I realized I hadn't called her in 2 days. She was under full heat stroke arrest by the time we got the police there, because she's one of those deadbolt, nobody get in my house, window, just, you know, leave me alone kind of thing most of the time. And it was just horrifying to think that we almost lost her. I ran to the refrigerator and got ice. My brother's a nurse, and she was on the floor while we were waiting for the paramedics. So the seriousness hit home, and she immediately went to the hospital, and we found more problems. So there we go. The distant caregiver finds out there's really some serious problems she's been living with. And so that's when it was like, you know, she's not going back to the house. And I needed the doctor's support to communicate that to her. It's not safe for you to be home. She didn't want the air conditioner blowing on her, and she likes it. You know, elderly people don't like it to be cold. And that was 2018 when the temperatures got above 108 degrees. And she had 106 body temperature, and they got her to the closest hospital, put a refrigerated Arctic sleeve to bring her temperature down. And she had not turned the air conditioner back on. She turns it on, turns it off, lets it cool off a little while. And she slipped into a deep sleep and heat stroke. And honestly, we were wondering if she did that on purpose, that she was ready to go. So things changed 2018. She moved in with me, and she's been with me ever since. And immediately in hospitals, round the clock care, kind of jolts your system when you have a stroke. So she was in home health care at Encompass Hospital. And from all of that, I realized you have to be patient and you have to be compassionate to the caregivers because it's not perfect. And you need to give them the space to take care of your loved one and be there for them when they need you.
Thank you. Thanks so much. And Yvette, how did things change for you over time? You talked a little bit about this earlier.
I did. And I was like, me and her were fighting each other. She didn't want to come and I didn't want her to come. I had raised my daughter. She had graduated from college. She was able to take care of herself. I had relocated to Austin to start my new, wonderful, fabulous, I'm not a parent life. I was here 1 year and my daughter moved in with me. And then the following year I had to bring my mom in. And just like y'all, she was, like I said, she was a retired RN. She fell, went into rehab, checked herself out. I went home for her birthday and she was in the bed. So what's wrong with you? And she's like, oh, I just don't feel good. Went back home in November. I could tell she had lost weight. Went back in December and she had C. diff. I walked into the house and it was a mess. Took her to the emergency room. They said she had C. diff and she was dehydrated. So all this time I kept saying either she was depressed or she had some type of dementia. And they kind of said, no, it's her medication. Once we get the medications correct and get, the fluids back into her, she'll be fine. Because of course, when you're dehydrated, it takes on those symptoms like dementia. So, but she never really came back from that. So, and that was like in December. So in January, I kept pushing her doctor to do this dementia test. And he was like, no, she's fine. Because she's a nurse, and they not only was he her doctor, they had this relationship because she had been with him for like 20 years. So anyway, long story short, he finally done the test and it showed she had the dementia. And so he's like, well, I don't want her living by herself. She can drive locally, but that's it. And she was like, no, I'm fine. I can do this, this, and this. I didn't share with y'all that she is a kidney transplant recipient. She was not taking her kidney medication. As a nurse, she has always taken her medications. She hadn't even gotten them filled since she came home from rehab, and that was in August. So I fought it too, because I was in denial too. I was like, oh, let's just get the medication back. She'll be fine. So my ex-husband was taking care of everything, taking her to her doctor's appointments. And finally he was like, you're gonna have to come get her. She wasn't eating or anything. So I ended up bringing her up here against my will, y'all. I was crying, going to get her. I was like, no, she's gonna be okay. So I was like, I can bring her up here, get her back on her feet, and then she can return back to her home. And that's what she thought too. I'll be fine. Let me get back on my feet and I can return home. 2 years later, she has not returned home. So we both fought it in the beginning. And I have over 20 years experience working with people with disabilities and dementia and different things. But when it came to my mother, I had a hard time adjusting. Like I would tell myself, don't you say it. Don't say it. Don't say it. She has dementia. Don't say it. And I'll be like, I just told you that. and so it was just, I went backwards. So now we, and then with COVID coming in, she wasn't able to see her friends. We weren't able to travel home as much. So she was thinking, she has brought me to Austin. She's keeping me from my friends. She won't take me out to eat. I can't go to Walmart. Like we are in a pandemic. So I was really the mother. And she was like, I'm the mother. Well, I'm the mother today because you're acting like the child. So we had to really, and we're still figuring it out. She goes to 5 doctors. She only went to 1 doctor before. She does not like going to see all these doctors. So it's just a transition. And you just have to learn, like someone said, you have to be patient, and not only with them, but with yourself. Because I know I get frustrated and sometimes I just walk off. We're in the process of trying to get her blood sugar together. She doesn't take her blood sugar correctly. Then she want to eat candy and drink soda and potato chips. And they have a fit when I don't go get it. And I'm like, your blood sugar is 350. You're not getting it. Somebody has to be responsible around here. So the roles have definitely changed, but it has gotten better because at first I was mad and she was mad. So now I'm not mad. She may be still mad, but now I'm more leveled out. And so with me being level, she's level sometimes.
Thank you. Thank you all so much for your selfless, your honesty. That's just so important. This next one, we have a little bit more time. We're doing okay on our time, so no worries there, because this is sort of a double question. What do you wish that you would have known or done early on in your caregiving journey? And or what kind of lessons have you learned? You know, did you have any aha moments, things that were unexpected that came out of this journey that you've been on? So I'm going to go ahead and start with Sharmila on this one. And I'll repeat it if I need to.
That's great. So this is not an aha moment because I mentioned I'm an only child. My mom came to visit and she never ended up going back because of the health issues. She cannot go back to India. There's a house that's unattended. There's finances that I don't know how to deal with from here. So I wish I had taken more interest. I wish I had set up net banking for her. I wish I knew how to click a button and pay the electricity bills and all of that stuff. So that's something I wish I had been more proactive about. And I will say I was ignoring this big problem. And being India, a lot of things are not online and people don't answer the phones at banks and things. So it's very different from our experience over here with customer service and support and people really wanting to help you. So that's the one thing that I feel like I'm in a bit of a mess. The second thing is I did not do my research on resources available here. So when somebody mentions respite and somebody mentions, you know, your organization, I'm like, oh, you know, let me get a pen. And maybe just like Betsy mentioned, support's not going to come knocking. You have to go out there and ask for it. And sometimes just asking your friend circle may not be the answer. You need to vocalize what you really need. So that's the other thing I feel I didn't do enough research on. But I will say the aha moment in moments of stress, in moments of having to repeat myself, in moments of being on the call with ARC and checking the portal to see if a payment was made and all of this stuff. My aha moment was actually two things. One was a friend of mine, my best friend in India said, Sharmila, it is a privilege to look after your parents. And it really put me in my place one morning. So that was my aha moment. Stop saying that you're caring for your mom, you're caring for your mom. You know, you've been taking all your life. You would want it no other way, which is very true, which is why it's our time to give, right? So that was my aha moment. I knew it all along, but just being told that by somebody who you care, respect, and love so dearly, that was wonderful. And the second thing was my cousin who cared for her own two parents. They never had children because they knew they would have to care for their own parents and in-laws. And I remember complaining and whining one day and to my cousin. And something she said again shook me back into this space, you know. And she said, Sharmila, it's only gonna get worse. So accept it, embrace it, you know, just take in every moment that you can of this beautiful human being. And just celebrate life and make all these experiences. And that's what I've been doing. And the aha moment for me was, wow, I really surround myself and ourselves with really inclusive friends because she never feels left out. The other aha moment was the big one for me was not to take away that decision making ability from her. Let her decide what she wants to wear, which shoes she wants to put on, whether she wants to take a walking stick or not, what she wants to eat, because I feel like that lends to her quality of life. So those are my few takeaways.
Thank you so much. All so helpful. Miss Loretta Brown, would you want to speak to this one next?
Yes, I turned my video off because I'm sitting here listening intently. I don't want you to see all my
No problem.
expressions. So I guess one of the first aha moments that I want to point out is that there are people that care. It's not just a quote unquote agency up there. There are compassionate people that are there to help us, and we're not alone in this. And that was a big aha moment this past year. A couple practical aha moments I jotted a few down. Keep an emergency kit ready. Like when you have to go to the hospital and it's a reality. There are problems that happen, and you know, in a flash, it can be, you know, commode full of blood, to put it bluntly, and you got to get them to the hospital. So I realized I was running around and stuff, not once, but more than once when that happened. And you have to be ready for a true emergency, not just the 911 call someone to help them get up, but to be ready to, you know, have your car ready to go, because sometimes you've got to go to the hospital. So keep, you know, also keep an emergency kit if things like power outages happen, because you've got an elderly person. If there's like medical situations, if you've got catheters, you've got this, you need to have light. So keep the batteries, keep the practical things handy. That's an aha moment I experienced several times, to have those immediate supplies. Also, the mail order meds. I mean, that's the biggest aha moment, when I had the home healthcare workers, you know, in a flash, your mom or your loved one might be the one they ask. They hand the little tablet to sign away whatever, and you don't realize that they're signing for medical pharmacy services that are outrageously expensive, and you didn't know they were doing that. You need to pay attention to that. So make sure you utilize whatever insurance. Like, for example, my mother has TRICARE, because my father, who passed away in 1997, you know, military dependent, we would always physically drive to Fort Hood and get medical supplies. We don't have to do that anymore. You can sign up for the mail delivery and have it on auto replenish, so you never run out of it. That is so important. And to also get those little weekly, monthly, the pill holders, you know, get that out of the way, because they have a lot of different medications. And I guarantee you there's a day when you're going to forget, and they're going to go, hey, where's the big yellow pill? You know, they'll check you on that. And you have to be cognizant that you got to be aware when you're filling the meds and responsible for that. Otherwise, you're going to pay a lot of money for that kind of thing. And, you know, taking care of yourself, the aha moment of how important your friends are. I didn't really go into a lot of this, but I've been cultivating and have some friendships with people I get along with who have elderly parents. So we share our experience and everything. And we actually get together every Thursday now, this past couple of years, by Zoom. And we just talk about anything, you know, something, you know, some of us might have a bad day where we can't even talk. We just cry, you know, because something's going on, and someone might lose a loved one. Well, we have to deal with that, know how to deal with that. So that's so important. But the aha moment, don't get frustrated. I mentioned on the healthcare, it's just real important to listen to the professionals. Don't think you know it all, because you really need to read between the lines sometimes. And I'll give one example of my mother. I didn't realize that she was having hallucinations and confusion. I didn't, you know, she's very smart. She remembers things. So I didn't think she doesn't have dementia and all that. But she would tell me, I would listen to them, because she would tell me, you know, someone's breaking in here and stealing my whatever. And I would just like, oh, I don't know where that came from, but it's a serious issue. I mean, she was having some interactions with medication that were causing confusion. And I had to bring it up to the doctors, and we put her on some antidepressants, because it turned out that she was really isolated and feeling alone. Even with me here, you know, I wasn't always here. So you really have to be aware of those signs. And then, of course, you really need to pay attention to the social services and make sure you schedule routine appointments. Like podiatry, you need to make sure they're you know, they can't take care of stuff, take care of their toenails, or taking care of things like that. You know, everybody gets manicures or whatever. Well, we need to take care of basic needs for these people and realize it's important. It causes health issues if you don't do that. And finally, medical, power of attorney, the documents, social services, they'll actually have a home appointment with you to go through all of the stuff you don't know. You need this, you need that, you need Social Security, you need this, you need your medical power of attorney, durable power of attorney. They'll bring the documents to you. All you have to do is ask, and they'll tell you what you need, and also get their wishes for do not resuscitate. I can't read all of it all to you, but I know where the packet is, and social services helped send a professional to help me get all the documents, and I don't have to lose sleep over that anymore. That was a big aha moment that I appreciate, Patty, everybody that helped me with that.
Thank you. Thank you, Loretta. Yvette, the same question about, what do you wish you had known and any aha moments?
What I really wish I would have paid attention to was her medical care. Because she was a nurse, I never had to worry about that because she knew what she had to do or what needed to be done. So when I transferred her up here to Austin, well, these were all new doctors and they got to asking me questions. Well, why is she on this medication? Why is she on this medication? I was like, you the doctor? I don't know. So those are things I wish I would have paid attention to with her. My aha moment, I guess, was that she was, for a while, she was just still my mom. So she was the parent. And my aha moment was, you have to take responsibility and make these decisions that's important for her. And sometimes when she comes to me and say, well, I want this, I don't care about my blood sugar, I still have to be the parent or the adult and say, we can't do that. And sometimes as my mother, I still want to do that for her because she's my mother. So I had my aha moments was, you're going to put your big girl panties on. I'm an only child too, Sharmila, so I get it. You're going to have to put your big girl panties on and you're going to have to make these hard decisions that you don't want to make. I did not want to tell her, no, you can't have this soda. No, you can't eat this candy. No, you can't have this apple pie. And then I started hiding stuff because the doctor really don't want her to drink soda, but they kind of made a deal that she could have one a day. Y'all, she finds them. Sometimes I have to put them right in sight for her not to see them. If I hide them, I hear her at night going through stuff, click, click, So that was my aha moment. It's like you gotta make these decisions because this is part of her care. I mean, and part of her dementia is vascular. So it's because of high blood pressure and her diabetes from her not taking care of herself. So I finally got on some medication to help with the memory, and it has been improving. She's been on it probably a month. So yeah, and another thing too is always have a routine, especially when dealing with dementia patients. You need a routine. So.
Thank you. And Betsy, same question.
I'd like to have been great to realize earlier how much my phone could do for me. I use the camera picture to take pictures of all the documents I fill out and sign, the business cards, the flyers, the notes I've taken, even the Zoom meeting screens, if I think they contain info I could use later. It's wonderful to have this information at your fingertips or be able to transfer it to one file tab on your computer for easier reference. I also have taken photos of bruises of falls, medication instructions, piled up dirty dishes in her room that have not been removed, and a picture of 1,000 words, they say, and it helps me show others I'm not exaggerating. This is what I saw or witnessed. I have even used the tape recorder feature on my phone to record instructions from doctors during doctor visits, so I can refer back to them later or pass the information on to others who need to hear the information in its original form and not how I may have understood it at the time. I keep numerous file folders and small wheeled cart with different files for the areas of my mother-in-law's care that I can refer to and pull out quickly. And this has been a great help in reference storage thing for me. And I also have copies of my mother-in-law's power of attorney, will, et cetera, and other legal documents in these files. There are also files for insurance cards, driver's license, ID, medical care card, Medicare card, Social Security, et cetera. You never know what information is needed in what form, so having it there at your fingertips is great. The cart often travels with me in the back of my vehicle, just in case I need to pull it out to access something important. I also wished sooner I had realized that the job of writing certain family obituaries would fall on me. I wish I could have asked some of my loved ones what they wanted included in recording of their final memories of my life. And just for FYI, my husband and I have pre-written our obituaries and have prepaid funeral plans as a gift to our children so they don't have to try to do this themselves at the last minute for us. And if there are things you have wanted to say for a long time but have not gotten around to saying it, say it before it's too late. Sometimes verbalizing the obvious will mean the world to somebody. My mother and I shared such a time in her last days, and it was a wonderful, never to be forgotten experience. A great tip I learned by example from my husband. He asked his mom one day, "What's going on in your head right now, Mom?" She was getting ready to move from an assisted living facility into a memory care facility. She seemed stressed and we wanted to help. She responded, "I'm worried I will not be able to do the things the new place wants me to do." Don't we all worry about that sometime, and that we will be able to do the tasks that we're having to face and do? Knowing what her biggest fear at the moment was allowed us to address it and help relieve some of her worries. Thank you.
Thank you all. That was probably our toughest question, and I appreciate all the input. Great ideas, both practical and also from the heart. We're in the home stretch. We have one more, and we also have a couple of questions in the chat, which I hope we'll be able to get to. I'm pretty sure we will. Thank you, Sharmila, for responding in the chat. I just want to again thank the panelists for being so selfless with their honesty. The last question that we have, the formal question, is what practical tips, and some of you have already shared some of this. So if there's anything extra that you haven't shared, feel free. And if you've already pretty much shared everything, that you had, just feel free to pass as well. What practical tips from your experience would you like to share with other caregivers? And Yvette, why don't we start with you?
As I stated before, create a routine. I work 2 jobs, so I confuse my mom a lot because what's the day? Because one job I work 8:30 to 5:30, the next job I work on the weekends, 10-hour shifts. So have that routine in place for not only you, but for her, whoever you're caring for. Also create, like I buy her puzzles, and her favorite snacks, sugar-free, and try to trick her in thinking they sugar. Create, like I said, create a routine, utilize your resources, accept help, because like you said, like Sharmila said, we are not super women. Especially the only children. I'd be like, oh my God, I should have had more kids because I only have one child. My daughter does try to come and, get her and give me some stress reliever, but she would not go stay with her. I don't know why. When I do take her to respite, she's like, your boyfriend's coming over? No. So, and try to spend that time. I done a vision board for the year. And on my vision board, I have spent at least 15 minutes with her a day. So I had bought gel polish, was gonna do her nails, that didn't work. So it's just like learning your parents. Really, they're not your parents. You're learning them as, I know someone had put, do you see them as a person? I didn't at first because I seen her as my mama. So now I see her as a person. And so I try to respect her as that person she is. So create a routine and definitely do some self-care for yourself.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Betsy.
Okay, my first big one is breathe. If your loved one does not know how to do this breathing technique, teach them as well. It relieves stress and pain and can sometimes help you think clearer. Tip from my husband: dance lively when by yourself, even without. It loosens muscles, relieves stress, and lightens your mood. I've started doing this when I'm on hold for a phone conversation or while a commercial's on TV. And I'll tell you, it feels better. And be more open, he's doing it in the background. Be more open to receiving help and appreciative when you receive it. And I repeat, be appreciative when you receive it. It helps remind yourself of all the positive support you're getting, and it lets the helpers know without a doubt that they're doing something good. Also smile. It makes you and others feel better. Ask people you interact with what their preference means of communication is. This is a biggie to me. Do they want you to call them, text them, email them, visit them in person? If they're not going to open a message or answer the phone call that you make, you're not going to get the help that you need when you need it. So do it their way. And I'll end with my most important message I want to share relating to my facility's caregiver journey. If your loved one takes medication ever so often on a routine basis, ask to receive a medication administering report, or whatever the facility may call it, on a consistent basis. I used to get this weekly when I needed it that way. It tells you what pills your loved one's being given, at what time they were administered, if time is important, and most importantly, if they're not being administered and why not. If the facility is reluctant to provide you with a full detailed report, you might want to ask yourself, what else are they not making me aware of? These reports also help me help them to track refills, medications that should be discontinued or that may have been overlooked. The latest managers with the Heritage Assisted Living, where my mother-in-law was living before being moved to memory care, were reluctant to provide full reports. I know why, and this was a big part of my decision that it was time for her to move out of there. Her new facility shares with me anything I want to see. I love New Haven. And we work as a trusted team, and my mother-in-law has been much better off. Summary: be productive, train, and document the information that comes your way. Listen to what your loved one tells you is going on in their head and help them get through it. Share the boxes inside your burden box. Your load will be lighter and you will be better for the experience in the end. This last caregiving experience has been my hardest yet, but I feel good I was able to take it on and help some and receive help. I would not have wanted to be anywhere else or doing anything else during this time. Not all our blessings come in boxes tied with pretty bows, but they are still blessings, and we would not want to miss them simply because we were too afraid to say, with help, I think I can do this, or I'm willing to at least try. My journey was well worth the work, and I hope you will be willing to try, and yours will be too. Thank you.
Thank you, Betsy. Loretta, I know you shared a lot of practical tips in the last question. Do you have anything else to share?
There was a question that popped up on the screen from Loretta Tubbs, and I think she hit it on the head with resentment. And I'm just laughing, or not laughing. Well, here's the thing. You can either cry, be mad, or laugh and move on. And I think resentment is one of the biggest keys, because I have two brothers that make a lot of money. My mother's living with me. I don't make a lot of money. And they published on Facebook how they bought a new Cadillac, or they bought a new truck, or they bought a new this, or they bought a new that. But they owe my mom like $5,000 and never paid her back when they needed help. So, you know, you got to let that stuff go. And you have to be grateful. I mean, that my practical tip is you have to focus on the positive and eliminate the negative, because it'll kill you. Why do you want that swimming around in your head? Be grateful that, you know, they're doing the best they can where they are at. And for me, being plugged in, for me, my personal faith is I have to have help by somebody bigger than me to get through this. So draw from your faith, or draw from your friends that have faith. Or, you know, if you don't have faith, maybe call the faith that your mom believes in, if she believes in anything, and have them talk to her. We had a young priest that just became a priest, go to the hospital. We had someone from a parish that never knew my mom, and he got along better with my mom than I did. They were there talking for hours. I'm like, how did that happen? It's like you have to accept your loved one where they're at, and know that they are a real person. And I've learned how to watch Gunsmoke with my mother. Instead of turning on all the bad news, find out what really makes them happy. She loves to watch Gunsmoke. So at night, before we go to bed, I watch an episode of Matt Dillon and Kitty, and we are happy, even though there's shoot 'em up guns and all that stuff. It's what makes her happy, and it makes me happy. So the resentments, don't let it kill you. I mean, I'd be dead if I, you know, made a list of all the things that they didn't do for me that they should be doing for us. And I realized that, you know, I just want to share one last thing. My mom loves to read. Her favorite movie when she was young, whatever, was Charlotte's Web. When my mom was growing up in New Mexico, she lived on a farm, poor, in outside of Taos, you know, just farm kids. And she actually helped the lambs. She was like a little lamb herder, whatever. She took care of the lambs, and she actually made money that helped her mother buy furniture. I mentioned that, Patty, because the care coordinator that coordinated my mom's care, her name is Charlotte Lamb.
Wow.
And
Wow.
without that divine intervention, and I communicated that to her, I said, wow, this is awesome, because this must be divine intervention, because my mom's favorite story is Charlotte's Web, and she loves lambs, and your name is Charlotte Lamb. And okay, despite that, she didn't prove me wrong. I didn't know my mom couldn't hear. She helped plug us in with Easter Sills hearing aids. My mom has not been able to hear for years.
Wow.
That until she lived with me. You guys have helped her hear. My mom has always, even in the military family, we always went back to get military, dental care at a regular dentist's office in Oceanside, California. Over the years, my mom's fillings have broken out. She never went for dental care because she couldn't afford it. She was trying to make ends meet. This program helped me plug in with a dentist who helped my mom get dentures this past couple months. That was because of these services I didn't know about. And I just had to share that this has just been a delightful experience, and we've got to keep on helping each other. And I hope everybody who's listening on this call knows that don't isolate, get out there and plug in and help, because you can be happy doing caregiver chores and not live in resentment. Thank you, Patty, and thank you.
Thank you, Loretta. Thank you so much. And then Sharmila, you're bringing it up and bringing it home. That same question, what practical tips?
Wow, thanks so much, Loretta, for sharing that, Betsy. But I mean, I'm so honored to be here with all of you. So I'll start with a couple of practical ones that I mentioned before, routine, like you all have said. I also noticed that, when she said, I have backache, I'm like, oh, come on, you've been through a quadruple bypass, you've had a stroke, you've come out of it, you had fractured ribs, you have a pacemaker, everything was put in last year, and you're on your feet, you're walking. Let's just be happy. The backache is nothing. But I stopped and listened. And we managed to get her to physical therapy, and I noticed a big change. The point I'm trying to make is listen, like empathic listening, just be an active listener. We tend not to do that sometimes. And I've kind of got used to my mom being like a ghost in the background. She actually did pass by really strong. And it's important to remember them as a person, like Loretta mentioned. And what I noticed is when I take her those 20 miles of physical therapy twice a week, she gets that attention, that one-on-one attention from somebody who calls her vibrant, who loves listening to her stories, who views her differently from how I view her now. So I think that's really important to be able to, if they're able to leave the home or home health or whatever, just get them that interaction and really listen to what they may need. The second thing is, this one's very hard one for me, but encourage them to do their tasks independently. My mom had a stroke, but you know what? She still wants to knead dough, try to knead dough to make a favorite dish for her granddaughter. And you know what? I'm like, okay, if that's what you want to do makes you happy, that's fine. And this is occupational therapy. It's good for me. It's great. So I was like, okay, I won't argue. So she's a hard worker and she's a fighter and she doesn't want to be a burden. So I let her fold laundry, or, she wants to grab a broom. It used to annoy me. It's dangerous. But you know what? If that's what gives her energy and keeps her enthused and feel good about contributing in some way, and she's able to, I'm going to let her do it. I've decided that I'm just going to let her do it. Important to have, like I said, inclusive friends or inclusive kind of activities. So I have a 10-year-old daughter, who's very spirited, ADHD. I have my 80-year-old mom, and then there's me in the middle. So we'll do a little spa day at home, soak our feet, do little foot massages, just anything that would get both of them excited and to bond with me, sandwiched in between. So there are activities that I tried to, I can't take her to the Zilka Hillside Theater, but I have to do it with this one. And there's activities that I have to do with mom that I can't include the little one in. But just finding those activities that we can both do together, even if it's just going somewhere to feed the ducks. Beautiful experiences that we're building together. And share what's in our heart, share what's in our mind. And I view that as spreading the light, because I think so many people who we come in contact with in our daily lives will also be in similar situations. So just share what we know and be just honest. Honesty works the best. I've always had the ability to notice miracles in the mundane. So I love that story, Loretta, about Charlotte Lamb. And that's kind of what gets me going every single day, and just being grateful for the little blessings that even Betsy mentioned. There's a piece of advice, and this was to me, but maybe some of you are in the situation. I am impatient, I get a little agitated. My position was eliminated at my job a couple of months ago, so I have that added pressure. But somebody gave me some great advice, and I argue with my mom a lot. We bicker. My friend in palliative care says it's okay, it's good, keeps them engaged. But what I was told is, Sharmila, do you want to be right, or do you want to be in relationship? So I've learned a lot from that simple lesson, and I wish you all much love and many blessings and much strength and courage, and definitely turn inward for that inner engineering, whether it's through mindfulness or being out in nature, whatever helps you, whatever floats your boat, whatever fills your cup, and just accept these wonderful resources. I'm so happy to be here today, and I'll be calling all you lovely people at some point. So thank you so much for this opportunity to share and learn so much.
Thank you. It looks like Betsy might have one more thing to say. Is that a raised hand, Betsy?
No.
Okay. You're all okay. You're all set then. So I'm going to just thank you so much. Thank you all so much for your honesty, for your selflessness. We've heard a lot about, we've heard this sharing and this openness. You're all so strong, but at the same time, what I appreciate you sharing is the moments when you felt vulnerable, and when that was the hardest time to care, but you still did it. I heard gratitude a lot, gratefulness, mindfulness. I appreciate the sharing of both the practical, but also the emotional and the heart side of it, because that's really, Barry Jacobs was our keynote speaker, and he talks a lot about the mission that caregivers have to care. And it's different for every single caregiver, but it really shines through in all of you. And I appreciate the time and the attention. We have about 10 minutes. I'm going to bring Rhonda up and see if Rhonda sees any burning questions in the chat that either you can answer, and you can probably just do this by raising your hand, unmuting yourself, and just answering something that we want to try to answer, Rhonda, that didn't get answered or talked about.
Yeah, I was going to say, all the panelists have been answering as we go. That's been great. Y'all have been responding.
Yes,
it's been wonderful.
yes.
Thank you for jumping in there. We appreciate that. One thing is, and Yvette, I think you answered this very well, but how do you see your care receiver as a person? You did respond to that. And I think maybe some of you other folks did too. Self-care was mentioned, was asked, and are there some other tips on self-care? I think Sharmila answered that one very well. If there's anybody else that wants to jump in on self-care.
Yeah, what do you do to take care of yourselves? Anybody have any suggestions?
I like to get my nails done. So I like to go get my nails and pedicure. That's my one little hour and a half that's quiet. And believe it or not, I will sit in my car for about 30 minutes before I come into the house. One of my friends used to do this all the time, and I thought, why would you do that? That is the craziest thing I've ever heard of. But one day I accidentally done it. I was sitting in the car just looking and piddling, and I thought, this is a good idea. So I do that. I will, when I get home, get off from work, I just sit and my mom, she gives me to 7 o'clock to get home, and then she's calling. So she'll call me at 7 o'clock, and I'll say, I'm outside, sitting in the car. And so that just gives me time to wind down between transition from work to going into caregiving mode. So.
Right.
I'd love to share something. I just thought of it, and it works beautifully for me. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I have been putting myself into situations where I learn something completely new or put myself into something. I put myself into uncomfortable situations that use a different part of my brain. So I love music, but I just discovered I cannot play the guitar. So I joined guitar lessons and I learned from a 22-year-old. So totally different perspective, totally different frame of mind. And it forces me to use a part of my brain that I'm not wired, that's not used. So I challenge myself in those ways. And the second thing is that element of play, that playfulness. So we were actually at the state capitol on the steps at some event on the weekend, and some of us, for my kids' event, dance event, Bollywood event, and I got roped into doing folk folk dance. I do not like crowds. I do not like performing. I cannot dance to Hindi music, but I did it, and it was the most fun thing. And sometimes just introducing that element of play, whatever it may be, whether it's dance or whether it's, just, I don't know, laughing yoga, that really does help sometimes to just switch a little bit, switch your mind out of one thing to another. And then you come home with even more stories and you're just a happier person and you have more to share and more to give and receive. So just wanted to share that. That's been working.
Thank you. I think one thing, we had some other questions, but I think in the chat, we've had conversation about having a support group, and everybody wants to be in your all's support group. So everybody wants to be, with the four of you in your support group. So, maybe we can follow up with that. If anybody wants to reach out to us or Age, let us know, and we can maybe connect. If that's okay, we can connect with a support group or something. And somebody wants to know where you got the folk dance, where you found the folk dance, I think.
I put it in the
Monsoon
chat.
dance.
The
Yeah.
name of the organization. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah, monsoon dance. Yeah. Natalie wants to help. Now, okay, Natalie with Age wants to help facilitate the support group, and Lynn Greenblatt with Caregiving Cafe. I mean, this has been probably one of the best sessions we've ever had. We have loved this, and there are other. Rob's going to jump in here in a minute, I think, but there have been other. There are just a few other things that were mentioned, I think, but they were addressed in the chat, and that'll be available. That will be available to attendees, and all this information will be available, and you can certainly reach out to either one of us, and also Caregiving Cafe, and we can follow up with that. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, my only regret is that we are not face to face, and I cannot give you all this big hug, which I would be doing. So next time we do get to meet in person, watch out for that.
So we're sending bubbles your way. We're sending bubbles.
There you go.
I'd like to send a personal invitation for all of us to meet again the next time we have this in-person event.
Yes.
I will be there. If it's
Absolutely
5 years, I will find you and I will be there.
Yes, speaking of the in-person, we were scheduled to have our celebratory luncheon this Saturday, day after tomorrow at the Norris Conference Center. And unfortunately, with COVID the way it is, we had to postpone that. So we are going to do that on January the 22nd. At Norris Conference Center. Our keynote speaker, Chet Gardner, has agreed to be with us for that day. So we are hoping that everything still goes well, that we'll be able to meet in person on January 22nd to celebrate not only the 20th anniversary of the Striking Balance Conference, but as caregivers to be in the room together. Because as we've seen today, this information and this ability to share with each other is one of the most vital resources that we have. Yeah. So we're going to send you all the information about the in-person luncheon, in addition to all the other great things we're going to send you at the end of the conference. I want to personally thank all the caregivers so very much for their honesty and sharing their stories. As a caregiver myself, I know that it's very difficult a lot of times to open up about our experiences because they are very personal to us. but having this opportunity to share this information is so vital. And I want to thank you so much. And I just want to reiterate one thing that was said today by one of the caregivers, and that is there is never, ever any shame in asking for help. All of us need help at some point in our life, in our journey. And that's why organizations such as the Area Agency on Aging of the Capital Area, Age of Central Texas, Caregiver Cafe, the Alzheimer's Association, AARP, we are all here to provide you with that assistance, with that hand to hold, with that shoulder to cry on when you need it. So please, wherever you are in your journey, when you decide you need some help, reach out to us. That's why we're here. That's why we exist. We also want to thank you personally for joining us today. We know that taking time out of your caregiving journey to spend an hour and a half is sometimes a big ask to make, but we want to thank you for doing that. We hope this has been very helpful for you. We're going to conclude our 20th anniversary Caregiver Conference this afternoon at 1 o'clock with a wonderful presentation from Bob Stephen. He is the Vice President at AARP. We're going to talk about what have we learned over these past many years of caregiving and what's coming in the future for caregivers. So we hope that you have a chance to join us this afternoon. Once again, all the sessions are being recorded. They'll be posted on YouTube. We'll send you those links as well, along with all of the resources. We want to thank you so much for joining us this morning. We're at our 11:30 mark, and as promised, we're going to end on time. We hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks to my experts.